Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. I'm Carson Fox, bringing some bye-week news for you. And without a game to talk about for this upcoming Saturday, the only news that we can talk about with the West Virginia football program is that defensive coordinator Jordan Lesley was relieved of his duties. Neal Brown announcing the firing early this week. And if you follow me on Twitter, my real-time reaction was a joyous sense of relief. It really, I feel like, bubbled up during the backyard brawl in September. And then some weird decisions and comments made by Jordan Lesley, I feel like, over the course of the month of October, with having left the field to call plays from the press box for a game. I don't know whether that was the Oklahoma State game or the Iowa State game, and then coming back to the field and having a poor play calling situation. And like, why is he not back up in the box? And then last week against Arizona, especially there in the fourth quarter when a couple of play calls in the Tampa 2 type of defensive set were called, in which linebacker Trey Lathan was covering wide receiver Teteroa McMillan. It just all kind of, I felt like, bubbled up. And ultimately, Jordan Lesley as a defensive coordinator, which you can judge him holistically by the defenses from 2020 to 2024. I would definitely say 21 to 24 because this defense just never improved. West Virginia had, I think, the second best scoring defense in all of college football in 2020. That may be because of the COVID year, the fact that West Virginia didn't play Oklahoma that year. They had some really good players. Treshaun Miller comes to mind on that team. Nick Troy Fortune, the Stills brothers. That defense, especially the secondary in 2020, really showed out. Tyke Smith on that team before he transferred. It just seemed like everything was going for Neal Brown and Jordan Lesley in terms of building up what was supposed to be a defensive program. But then in 2020, kind of fell back to earth. Pass defense, couldn't get right. Did have a really solid linebacker in Tony Fields in 2020, but just not creating enough pressure, not, with the departures in the secondary, kind of hurt, namely Tyke Smith and Treshaun Miller, who I've already mentioned. And West Virginia just never improved. Now, for 2022, it was, the fact that I feel like West Virginia couldn't replace its cornerbacks. But then last year, still had a bit of an underwhelming defense with arguably one of the best cornerbacks in program history of the last 20 years in Beanie Bishop, nailing down that cornerback one spot. So what I kind of expected for 2024, and this is what's so perplexing about this season and Jordan Lesley as in terms of the defensive coordinator, is I had thought for so long that if West Virginia would create more pressure on the quarterback and could do so with a four-man front. That if you watched me listen to me all offseason, I was talking about, the speculation between West Virginia going to a more traditional version of a 3-4 defense and using its bandit linebacker in better ways. And that just never came to fruition. But West Virginia is creating more pressure on the quarterback this year. One of the best in college football, it feels like, with how good this defensive line is performing this season. So what confuses me is why defensive backs coach Shadon Brown is being retained, but it's Jordan Lesley who's the one who gets the pink slip. Why isn't it both of them? Is it simply just because of sheer number of bodies on the sideline? You don't want to be down two men, even though I feel like Javon Codlin could do a job as the assistant defensive backs coach if you wanted to, give the pink slip to Shadon Brown too. But then the other thing is, in terms of how Jordan Lesley's defenses have never really improved, is I feel like that's what was the one missing piece. And again, if you followed my program throughout the offseason, That's what I talked about. Is that's those schematic changes, the philosophical changes, the scheme changes. So, could West Virginia go from its 3-3-5, do some things differently? And it decided not to. It decided to stay the same course and just replace the players. So, do the same types of things, replace the players, and you expect better results. So, I think there's more to this story than just, if you think of you're not cutting off the head of the snake in Neal Brown of the program. Instead, you're cutting off a hand or just trying to use some sort of metaphorical analogy like that. But I think it goes deeper. I think it goes deeper in a sense that, yes, Jordan Lesley deserved this firing because he did nothing during this past offseason to improve this defense. Other than hiring Victor Cabral as I don't know if if that was a Neal Brown decision, hiring an outside linebackers coach. And again, I questioned this decision in my recap video against Arizona this past week, in which, why does West Virginia have two coaches coaching three positions? And then in the defensive secondary, we're talking about one coach for 5 positions and 2 corners and 3 safeties. That doesn't make any sense to me. And then secondarily, being the moves in the transfer portal and not high school necessarily recruiting, because if you've listened to me, if you're relying on true freshmen to be the reason why your Power 4 defense it goes from good to great, or from bad to good even, you got bigger problems. So the fact that West Virginia, and I've been one who has really sung the praises of General Manager Drew Fabianich, listening to his interviews over the offseason and through the summer, but there have just been some misses, I feel like, 8 games. And I know there's still 4 games left and potentially a bowl game, so there's room for opportunity for improvement. But Garnet Hollis Jr., Jaheim Jackson, Kakura Tarnu, Aiden Garnes, Dantes Fagan. It just seems as if there's been more misses than hits, especially in the defensive secondary this year. But also, when West Virginia had, after spring practice, 3 scholarship opportunities to potentially add more to, I feel like, what should be this defensive line. Once you knew that Corey McIntyre was going to be done for the season, or a majority of the season with a knee injury, not going to the transfer portal to find another defensive line prospect, even if it was just a 1-year player, or you could find a 2-year player. Instead, West Virginia decided to add a 3rd or 4th string quarterback in Ryder Burton, a 3rd string tight end in Greg Genros, and also a wide receiver in Justin Robinson, who now through 8 games only has 8 receptions. So were those valuable investments for 2024, NIL and a coveted roster spot, scholarship, all of that jazz, to not add to this defensive line? I know there were big things awaiting for Eddie Vesterinen, TJ Jackson, Fatorma Mulba, Sean Martin. Don't get me wrong, but would you have wanted to have another defensive line prospect to beef that defensive line up even more so because of the attrition that it takes? And we've seen Eddie Vesterinen missing all of this season, TJ Jackson missing some time. Like, you have to have bodies on that defensive line. Instead, West Virginia added to the offense for some reason. So strange decisions there that impact Jordan Lesley's jobs. The misses in the transfer portal. So it is collectively a team effort, I feel like. But also that, so blame is deservedly around. But there's somebody who really has to pay the price. And again, given just some of the things that he's said, from the best defense that West Virginia's played all season after the Kansas State game, in which West Virginia gave up still 37 points defensively. I know Garrett Green, or 38 points. Garrett Green had a pick 6 that really can't count against them. Just like this defense is really going nowhere, has not really necessarily improved in 4 seasons. And, sometimes it just feels like that when these coordinator decisions are made, it's it's indicative of a move to retain, or a decision to retain the manager, to retain the head coach. And that's what I feel like, unfortunately, coinciding with the cryptic kind of newsletter that athletics director Ren Baker sent to Mountaineer Nation last week. That this is just the writing on the wall for head coach Neal Brown to come back no matter how 2024 ends. Now, I think there's much still to be determined on that note, but you get where I'm going with this. You've probably seen this story before. So that's where, like, I don't really necessarily want to crucify Jordan Lesley on here within this video, because, as I've said, I think the issue it's rooted deeper. The rot goes deeper, and I think it goes all the way down to the head coach, unfortunately, and the plateau in which this program has unfortunately reached that is not good enough to Mountaineer Nation standards from a recruiting standpoint, from a just roster management standpoint, and then at the end of the day, wins. That's all we care about is wins. And if you're not competing in a Texas-less, Oklahoma-less Big 12, you're not now staying in competition with Kansas State, Iowa State, Brigham Young for like, how is that? That more moves need to be made. Now it comes down to, unfortunately, the dollars and cents. So does West Virginia University want to make that move to do so? And I don't want to make this video about Neal Brown's job status and all of that. I think there will be coming a time and place to talk more so about that rather than the continuous speculation. But for this video about Jordan Lesley, and I hate to use this word, but almost seems like he's the scapegoat. He's the fall man for the failures of this team. Because yes, while the defense has struggled, underachieved, I still never think that this defense has ever figured out its bandit position. Ty French, because he's playing that position also. But like, what was the investment in him for? If Tyron Bradley, just giving him, he had that flash in the pan, it seemed like, for one game against Kansas, but perfect example. I was looking already, doing some initial research today on Cincinnati for next week's preview show, and Jared Bartlett is, I think, tied for the team lead even in tackles, excelling in sacks, tackle for loss. So you get him out of Jordan Lesley's defensive scheme, and he flourishes elsewhere. So was that due to sheer opportunity within a different team, and that's a good thing for Cincinnati, good thing for Jared Bartlett, or is it a poor reflection on the development of Jared Bartlett? I tend to think that this is the poor reflection of Jordan Lesley and West Virginia's defense, is that there's just such a level that this, I hate to say it because a lot of them have been here for like 6 seasons, or at least Neal Brown has, this G5 level caliber of coaches that West Virginia has right now. And it just really, really frustrates me because, is that an investment problem on WVU's half? And then is that, how does that reflect us as fans and the contributions that we make? I've read some articles and listened to some other shows. I think Mike Kazaza dropped this article about the debt that West Virginia University has, the athletics department's revenue budget, the NIL figure for the football team at least. And like, all of these numbers are extremely concerning. And it just makes you think, oh my goodness, what is happening to this wonderful football program that is still one of the top 20 ever in wins, has this long seeped history and tradition, and it just seems as if like the sky is falling. And it's people like me and others on YouTube who have been trying to like talk about this, I feel like, for a few years now, and that like this is desperation time. And it's just kind of kicking the can down the road. And maybe I think like we were all just kind of distracted and looking over here during 2023 when West Virginia was picked to finish last in the Big 12 conference and perhaps overachieved to win 9 games. But still, had these few things that like, oh, red flags that you're just not catching, you're just or not concerned with. And now we're to this point, and it's like, or you're at a do or die situation, and you don't know where to turn. So you make the what seems like easy cut in Jordan Lesley, and you move on. But recruiting, unfortunately, under Neal Brown has not, collectively, during his tenure, has not improved in comparison to what Dana Holgorsen was producing, what Bill Stewart was producing, the later years of Rich Rodriguez, even with the investments into the Pushkar Center, everything for the football team, and then also how big a strides Country Roads Trust has made in terms of NIL investment in the last season or two. So you would think West Virginia would be competitive with these programs that unfortunately that it's losing to. So a whole collective oversight, audit, review is desperately needed. But even if that is the case, and you find out at the end of the day the root issue is Neal Brown, the head coach, and what he's organizationally bringing down in recruiting, in development, your assistant coaches and stuff like that, does it make a difference if you don't have the money to fire him and make any sort of a difference? That's what's so concerning, what's so defeating, which makes you feel as a Mountaineer fan just hopeless. And I'm tired of that hopeless, sad feeling. That's not why I designed this channel. That's not what I wanted to talk about. I hate having conversations like this. But you can't help but feel this way, and I've kind of felt this way all week as it pertains to this program, is that but I appreciate West Virginia at least acknowledging there is a problem by making this decision to fire Jordan Lesley. The first step, I don't know if this is AA or something like that. It's like the first step is acknowledging that you have a problem, and that's your first step toward fixing it. So I'm at least thankful that West Virginia is making, in its football program, making this decision to do so, because it's acknowledging, hey, there is a tremendous problem here. Because it just seemed like, and it has for so long, that so many fans, content creators on YouTube like myself who get up on here and say these kinds of things are just wasting breath, wasting energy, wasting time, wasting dollars and cents. And that's why I made that video series in the off season about the WVU game day experience and talking about it all, because fans like you and me are investing what seems like, at least for us, and I truly do think it is putting a lot of resources into this program and into into everything from the collective to tickets to what you have to pay for parking. But it's unfortunate that today's world of big time college football comes down to dollars and cents, and as things get scarier, that the top tier of programs in the countries, the Ohio States, Alabamas, Texases, etc., Oregon tried to tend to break away and develop their league. If West Virginia is not keeping up with, say, that level of program 40 to 60, are you scared as if you're going to be like Oregon State and Washington State and get left in the dark or left out to the curb? So that's what's uberly concerning, I feel like, to me as a fan. So thankful West Virginia made this move. I'll be very curious to see how West Virginia's defense either improves or continues the same old next week against Cincinnati and for its remaining November games. But I'm thankful at least that it acknowledged that it has a problem. It might be just the tip of the iceberg with how much rot that they find from within the program, but at least it's a place to start there. Will it make a difference whether they acknowledge it or not because of the financial situation? We'll see. To be determined. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to probably be back tomorrow to talk, or I'm going to record another video to talk about this upcoming 2024-25 basketball season. So we're going to talk some WVU hoops. Really did not address WVU hoops this past season, so an opportunity for me within this channel to start to do some stuff to talk about basketball, so I'm very excited for it and hope you tune in. So thanks, everybody. Yeah, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog. I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. I will definitely have a preview show for next week's game, probably dropping Thursday or Friday for the Cincinnati game on the road. So, hail West Virginia. Have a great weekend. Let's go.